working out how to leverage your existing or your future research network for your own benefit. It's kind of good to know that there's not just a collection of names. It's not about collecting a list. It's about building a genuine network of connections who can actually help your next step forward. So that's what I'd love for you to do today. What I'd like you to do is think about what your goals are. And I'd like you to think about it in terms of one thing you'd like to learn, one thing you'd like to maybe change about what you currently do. And if you can answer this yet, one thing you want to do that we can hold you accountable for. That might be a little bit harder, but by the end of this session, you'll be able to fill it out. Today, we're going to be using a Padlet, and it looks a little bit like this. Am I still sharing my screen? You can still see that? All good, perfect. So the Padlet looks like this. Kathy, if I could get you to put the Padlet link into the chat. Otherwise, you are quite able to use the QR code if that's simpler, and that will give you access to the Padlet. It's anonymous. Hopefully it's writable. So if you would like to add, click on the plus sign under each column, what I'd like to learn, what I'd like to change, and if it's in time, what you'd like to do by the end of the session. I'd also like you to add, here's the best tips I learned today or were reminded of today. So I'm going to give you a minute to start writing in that. Slide isn't live, so it's okay if it's not appearing. So what do you want to learn? What do you want to change? All right. When people say they don't like networking, I have to be honest, I'm one of those. I don't like networking. The word kind of gives me chills. I'm not that excited about the concept of networking. I know it's really important, but it's not my favorite word of things to do. Often when people say that they don't like it, it's because they don't understand what it's really for or how valuable it is, particularly for HDR networking. So have a think about what you think networking is and why it's important for researchers. Can I get you to write that in the chat for me? What do you think it is and why is it important for researchers? Sure. Building connections and relationships with other people in the field, going to conferences, yes. Building connections for information exchange. You folk, it's like you've done this before. This is wonderful. Any other ideas of what networking is or isn't? Communicating effectively with people, yes, Dilpreet. Paula, relationships and collaborations, writing papers together. Great example, yes. Opportunities for your career development. Jonathan, I love that one. It's often something that we're a little bit focused on, but we don't always leverage it. What I want to have a quick look at is this live Padlet. If I can make it work. Come on my share screen. So I want to learn how to establish networks and connections after a PhD, how to improve my LinkedIn profile, how to present or pitch my skills. I love this. How to build a network, how to use social media. Good. Opportunities, networking skills, lack of a social media presence. This is unreal. Those sorts of comments really get me excited because one, well, that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, but two, it's really fun. And if I'm teaching you something that you don't know yet, then it's useful for you to learn how to move things forward, but it's really simple. So once you know how to do it, it's really simple to progress. All right. So most people think that networking is about selling yourself. And unless you've had a career as a sales manager before, nobody really likes to sell themselves. It's very difficult to just big note yourself all the time. Now, what I've learned about HDRs is we're a little bit more humble than we probably need to be. So talking about ourselves in the first instance can be a little bit daunting, and talking ourselves up is even more daunting. So you don't have to use networking as used car salesman and you're the car. I promise. Common misperceptions of networking is that there's a focus on talking, that you need to be extroverted to be good at this, that you need to attend every function. And there's a lot of pressure when you're going through your MPhil or your PhD. There's a lot of commitments that you need to meet on your time, right? So going to every single possible event, it's a lot. It's also exhausting unless you happen to be one of those blessed extroverts who thrives on those sorts of environments. Often it feels like we need to collect relevant business cards, either virtually or physically, that we focus on receiving what's in it for me. In case you're wondering what the WIFM means, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this experience? And for you to boast about achievements. Now, that is often what people think of when they think of networking. Now, when I think of networking in that definition, yeah, it's fingernails down a chalkboard for me. It's not really something I like either. So why would you prioritize it? Why would you prioritize making connections and building a network if that's the way it makes you feel? So I completely understand why it's nobody's priority. On the other hand, why is it really important? So actually, let's first of all go through, so what is it really? And when you look through your comments in the chat, there's a lot that looks familiar, right? It's about building meaningful connections, not big lists of random people's names, meaningful connections with people on mutual topics of interest that has the potential to benefit you in terms of future career opportunities, research collaborations, or job prospects. So you can see that it is a pretty useful thing. It's not about getting a job, and it's not about talking. It's actually about listening. One of the key networking skills, particularly face-to-face, is listening. It's asking questions. It's finding out about the other person. So Introvert's Guide to Networking 101, have a couple of critical questions ready to go. Because if you're the first one to ask the question, the other person has to answer it, and the pressure's all on them. At the end of their answer, they will often say, "Great question, what about you?" So if you've prepared your question, you also know what their first question for you is. So there's no surprises. It's a really good tip. So it's just about getting to know people and looking for where you can be of use to them and they can be of use to you. Okay. So why is it important for researchers? There's probably more reasons than you think. So the first one, we had this in terms of research collaboration, writing partners. How much easier is it to get published if you're not having to do all of the work? Got to be happy with that. To start a new collaboration. To exchange information about research. To secure some research participants or engage with an academic who maybe has a cohort that you can essentially borrow for your research. To broaden your awareness of industry trends. Now, when careers people talk about industry, it's really important that you don't think of industry as maybe manufacturing or business development or sales. Industry just means literally alt academic. So it just means everything except for tertiary academia. Anything outside of that, whether that's government work, not-for-profits, corporate, and entrepreneurship, any of those things, unless it's inside academia, that's industry. And that's the way we use that term. So it's to broaden your awareness of industry trends that are relevant for you. Importantly, it helps you build your profile and your reputation. This is where we often suck. We're not good at it. It's not all about us. We don't want the spotlight on us. We want it on our research. Am I ringing some bells for you folk? So it's to build your profile and your reputation. It is critical that you do as early career researchers. The previous generation of research professionals, PhD holders, probably didn't need to do it. Or if they did need to, they just didn't. And they muddled through without it. These days, unless you're on LinkedIn or some equivalent platform, recruiters can't find you. And unless you don't need a recruiter, so you're being referred through your supervisor or your internship partner or whatever that may be, unless you're being referred, you need to be visible to recruiters. Recruiters are looking on LinkedIn. So it's important for you to be there. Okay, why else? This is quite a few reasons, don't you think? To empower and inspire you throughout your candidature. If it's getting a bit, oh dear, I'm still halfway through this, or I'm just in that revolving circle of I'm not getting anywhere. How to re-energize yourself, how to re-motivate yourself. Sometimes it's about making new connections and sparking something new, new thoughts, new ideas, new perspectives, or at the very least, new audiences who are interested in what you're doing. Helps get you through. Now, practically, it's also to secure funding and organise grants, to be exposed to the hidden job market where you don't rely on recruiters and roles come to you. That sounds mythical, but if anyone stalked my profile professionally on LinkedIn, you will know that 2 of my current jobs I found through LinkedIn. So I didn't even know they were recruiting. They found me. Have to tell you, it's so much faster. So that's a fair bit. What I want to do is start with getting you used to swapping your stories with each other. So what I'd like you to do, now there's about a dozen of you. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do it in breakout groups. So inside the breakout group, I'm only going to use maybe 3 rooms. What I would like for you to do is introduce yourself, your name, your faculty, what your research topic is, but more importantly, what the impact of your research might be. Now, that might be for the community, for the body of knowledge, or why you think someone else would be interested in your research. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes each to introduce yourselves this way. Are you ready to join breakout rooms? Get ready to turn your cameras on and your mics on. And I'll see you shortly. It's always a good indication of whether I've given you enough time or not, how quickly people come back. Was that enough time for you to go through?
I think so, yeah.
Too much time?
Was pretty much on spot, so spot on. Yeah, so yeah, it was good.
Nice. Give me some feedback on how that feels. Do you enjoy doing those? Do you find them helpful? I don't mean breakout rooms in general. I mean introducing your research topic from a networking perspective. Feel free to unmic, just let me know.
I think in my case, it's interesting because it's such a niche topic that I have to kind of gauge people's reaction as I'm talking, so I know what I need to explain, because like in the title itself, it's got terminology that a common person wouldn't have any clue about.
Okay. So a really quick idea of, you know, reading the room. Is this something inside their comfort zone or not? Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Anyone else? Do you enjoy introducing your research, or do you struggle with it? Paula?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought you were talking to Jackie still. I find, like Jackie said, sometimes can be difficult depending what are you researching. If you are introducing yourself to people from other field, sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit loopy because I'm trying to explain something very specific for the arts and design, that the terminology and what I'm trying to get through, people don't understand. For starters, my main focus, which is plant agency, what I'm talking about, because it doesn't even exist yet as a definition. So yeah, it's complicated. And with all the people about science, it feels like what are you doing is very philosophical.
There is that STEM or non-STEM divide sometimes, isn't there? And sometimes it's a real thing, and sometimes we put that barrier in front. I wonder if we knew who our audience was and how many opposites we're speaking to. So if we're STEM, when we're talking to non-STEM, whether there's a different level of communication. So potentially it's, I'm looking at qualitative research in something or other, and maybe it's about your methodology that you spend more time speaking about if you're trying to look for commonalities or differences, but using terms that everyone understands. Do you think introducing yourself with, this is me, this is where I'm from, what I'm doing, and this is my research topic, do you think that's enough from a networking perspective to find people who would be interested to build your network? This is why I love having people's mics. Kunal's kind of going, ish. Paula's going, no. Kunal, what are your thoughts? As he answers the unmic.
If you kind of achieve a certain outcome, you know, 100 ways to actually achieve that.
So my topic is very broad in that it's actually a software engineering topic,
Yes.
algorithmic systems.
Okay.
But then I also have to deal with the
Yes.
humanities, social sciences. So I'm cross-disciplinary.
No, not at all.
So I have to go
Yeah.
into more detail into which aspect of it I'm looking at, which fields I'm going through.
Yeah, I love that. So in terms of transdisciplinary research, we have to potentially alienate, but also inspire everyone in the room. So it's something that they might be interested in. I love it. Okay, Jonathan says it's not enough. You need to explain why you would be relevant to their research and how they might be relevant to yours. Yeah, this is true. From from a one-off conversation that you've just had, that's probably even too much, isn't it? It's probably more around, what are you researching? Oh, what are you finding interesting? What are you finding challenging? And perhaps something along there, what is it leading to, or what are you finding challenging, is where we can sometimes help each other out, right? Sometimes it's about, oh, you get stuck on this too, me too. Or, you know, just normalizing. Research in general is pretty challenging, right? So just being able to relate to what their challenges are is sometimes enough to then start that conversation to work out whether it's something you can assist them with, or at least empathize with. All right, let's talk about who is in your network. Some of this should be pretty obvious, some of them not, right? So who's in your network? Academic connections. Let's start there, because we're probably the most comfortable with that, right? So who's your academic connections? Well, you've got your supervisors. That should be a simple one. Yes, they're your supervisor, your mentor. Hopefully they're on LinkedIn. They may not be. So what your value to your supervisor might be is introducing LinkedIn as a professional platform for your supervisor. You might be the expert in the room when it comes to platforms like that. It could be other colleagues, other research partners, people who have presented at conferences that you've been to. These are all academic kind of research heavy contacts that you want in your profiles and as part of your collection. Now, you'll also have personal connections. So this is, you know, the crossover between personal life and professional life. The reason that connections, social connections, family connections, neighborhood connections can be helpful is they might not be able to inform your research, but they might be extraordinarily good at marketing your research and spreading the word. So, for example, if anyone was interested in building their LinkedIn profile, Kathy also is interested in building her LinkedIn profile. And I don't think, Kathy, you'd say that your profile is ready to go right at the moment, is it? It's not as up to date as you'd like it to be?
No, it's sitting with my previous position, I'm afraid to say. So it has definite scope for improve.
Right. So Kathy's profile isn't quite ready to be promoted. But if you want to practice, please feel free to connect with either Kathy or myself. And mine's a little bit more further developed than Kathy's, because you know what, it's my job to teach you how to do this. So please professionally connect with me if you have not already. What the beauty of doing that for you would be, and with Kathy, is then our networks become your networks. So you don't have to connect with 700 other people. I've got, I don't know, 2,000 connections, something like that. You don't need to connect with 2,000 people. You need to connect with one, which is me, and then I connect you to those other people. So if you've got something awesome to talk about and I promote it on my page, then that gets to my whole network as well as your own. So it's about who do you know who might know somebody useful, and that can still be neighbours, friends, and family connections who don't work in your field, but boy, they might have some reach with industries or organisations who might find your research really, really interesting. Speaking of industry connections, who else can we have? There's mentors, industry partners from an internship that you might have engaged with, other colleagues, or if I can suggest something really, really simple, it's an alumni search. How many of you are connected on LinkedIn to others in from your alumni. There are several groups on LinkedIn that are QUT alumni. And what is unbelievably helpful about an alumni search on LinkedIn is you can go into LinkedIn, search on QUT, then you could search on PhD potentially, who has done research at my level at this university previously. And from there, you might be able to find people who are either working in organizations that you're interested to look at, or organizations you've never even heard of. And it's like, well, where did they find this research role? How can I find out about them? Using the alumni search gives you a really good reason to connect with them, outreach to them, and say, hi, I'm at QUT also, or I've just done you came up in an QUT alumni search. You could do that at your uni, you could do that at your previous school, you could do any of those alumni searches that would be useful. But I'm currently studying at QUT. Now, if you can find people who graduated maybe 5 years, about that, before you, it'll still be a fresh wound. I mean, a fresh memory. So they'll remember what it's like to have just graduated. They'll remember what it's like to not really know how to do the networking thing. And they might not be recruiting themselves at the time. But I tell you what, they'll remember what it's like to walk in your shoes, and they will have wished that they did some outreach the way you're doing, and they'll be really keen to work with you and help you out. So it's a really powerful tool. This is a way to find industry connections. Start with people who've studied PhDs at QUT. See where that takes you to industries that you might not have thought of or that you have been thinking of. The other way to do that is to search on the organisation and then find out who is doing research at those organisations. And that's another reason to reach out. If you've got people from all three of those groups, your academic connections, your industry connections, and your personal connections, between them, you'll have everything covered. So, here's a few ways to grow your network. That's a lot, right? There's a lot of ways. So if you were thinking, I don't actually know what I want to do to add that to the Padlet, here's some suggestions. You don't have to do all 8 of those things, but actually you do need to do number 8. So whoever you encounter, whether it's making presentations, joining conferences, joining associations, the question to ask when you meet anyone is there anyone else in your network that I should know? If people are willing to help, but you don't give them a specific question or a way to help, a really good question is, who in your network should I speak with? Who else do you know that I should know? And then you're not asking them anything hard for a job or anything like that. You're just saying, who else do you know who would be interested in what I'm doing? And it's really quick and easy for someone else to help you out. So finding people on LinkedIn is super useful. Not everybody is on LinkedIn from a research perspective, so be willing to blaze a few trails there. So if we assume that we've done some reach outs, we've got a network, how do you leverage that network to get more connected, to become more visible, or to promote your work in different ways? Well, again, there's quite a lot of tips here. I would love for you to do all of these ones. So one is contribute to discussions. And by contribute, you don't have to add new knowledge to your field every time you speak. From a PhD researcher perspective, you get used to thinking at that level. Sometimes it's a matter of going, I so agree with that. That's been my experience as well. Sometimes that's as much as you need to say, but participate, contribute, find what they're talking about, find conversations that you want to involve yourself with. So follow people in your field, academics in your field, organizations in your field that are working, or terminology from your field. Look those up on LinkedIn and follow people, influencers, organizations that talk about those things, and then engage in their conversations. It's the fastest way to learn how to build content yourself without actually having to build any content, because that can be a frightening thing or an intimidating thing. Just get used to liking, commenting, participating in those conversations. Remember that networking isn't about what's in it for me all the time. It's also about what can I do for you? How can I support you? How can I give back? So support your network. One simple thing that I do, particularly on LinkedIn, is anytime any of my first connections either start a new program of study and they add that to their profile, or they start a new job, I'm always really quick to celebrate that with them. It's one button to celebrate. Sometimes I'll make a comment as well, but if you start a new job and you are connected with me, I will always be celebrating that with you. Because if the career educator can't celebrate when someone gets a new role, who is going to? This is part of my reason for being. It's a really simple way of engaging. So if you go through my activity, a huge part of what I do is celebrate other people's successes. Offer whatever is in your power. So if you've got a job opening or a research project that's about to recruit, by all means say so, but we often don't feel like we've got anything to offer yet ourselves. We feel like we're learners, we feel like we're just getting the hang of it. I'm here to learn, but I don't have much to offer myself. Does that sound familiar? Imposter syndrome, anyone? Yeah, I can't really contribute anything, but I'd be interested to. So what is in your power? Offer that. Sometimes that does just mean encouragement. It just means support. It means agreement. It's, yeah, me too. Life is hard, right? It's that jumping on board and just expressing some empathy for when things go wrong, or it's celebrating when things go right. If somebody's finished something, submitted something, passed something, been rewarded or awarded something, it's to stand next to them and celebrate that. If that's the only thing inside your power, if you are proactively doing that with your network, you get noticed just for being cheer squads. Or it could be someone's attended a conference. They've put a piece of information up going, yeah, I'm presenting at a conference today. Afterwards, send them a message that might be public and say, what were your 3 takeaways from the conference that you attended? Or what was the best part of your presentation today? What went well that you'd like to celebrate? And again, you're not offering any new content, really. You're not offering your wisdom, but what you are offering is what is in your power, which is I can ask some critical questions that helps this person showcase their skills more effectively. If all you do is ask them what was your key takeaway from the conference that you went to, you will be teaching them that that's a more worthwhile comment to make, not just I was there, because, you know, being there is fantastic, but how do we know you didn't sleep through the whole thing? What did you actually learn when you were there? What was your takeaway? And to be able to share that and then link it with those conference organizers, this is the best thing I heard today. If you have a look on my Padlet that I'm asking you to fill, best tips I've heard today. So it's that same kind of thing. If it then becomes, I went to this conference and this is what I got out of it. And maybe that's the networking. Maybe there was one quote that really resonated with you. Share it with your network or ask your network to share that with you so that you can teach them. That's how to make worthwhile contributions, because 5 people could go to the same conference, sit through the same session, and you'll get different connectivity. Something will resonate with you that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same thing that resonates for someone else. If a conference presenter or an organizer knows that participants are learning different things from it, hello, validation. If I can get you to write down some of the best tips I heard today, either from each other or from me, onto that Padlet, that's going to make my day, because it's like, yeah, I really helped people think about ways that they can use these tips usefully. So that's how you can make my day. And if your intent on LinkedIn or with your network is to find ways that you can make their day, they'll remember that that's your intent and they'll want to do the same in reverse. So it's about reciprocal usefulness, basically. So it's not always content. Don't worry that you're not that expert or that's not your research topic, so you don't feel empowered to speak about it. If it's in your wheelhouse and you've got an opinion, that's worth speaking about. Write endorsements and seek endorsements on LinkedIn. They're hard to do. They're hard to do. I hate asking for endorsements, but I was brave and I had a one-to-one with Josephine the other day, and I asked Josephine, would you be willing to write an endorsement on my LinkedIn profile? And thank you so much, Josephine. She did. So the really amazing thing is, if you go into my LinkedIn profile and you look at endorsements, you'll see Josephine's beautiful writing and what she gained from one of the last workshops. What's beautiful about that is, as a recruiter, when I worked in recruiting, I looked at the endorsements you give as well as the endorsements you get. So that does at least as much for Josephine's professional credibility as it does for my own. The fact that she's written an endorsement on my profile. It's extraordinarily powerful. So this is one way that you can ask someone for a favor if we've had a great interaction, if you've done a research project together, if you've done any kind of collaboration. If you ask them for an endorsement on LinkedIn, it is at least as valuable for them as it is for you. So even though it's weird to say, can you write me a compliment? Because that's kind of what you're asking for. What you're also asking is, would you like to be known as a person that encourages and supports and demonstrates gratitude for people who've helped you along the way? And everybody wants to be known as a grateful learner, right? So you're asking, would you like to be known as a grateful learner? Endorse me, and that will show that for you. Does that make sense? Who here has written endorsements for other people before? Show of hands. Josephine, yes, I know you have. Thank goodness for you. Has anyone else done that? Just a couple? Has anybody, Jackie has too, and Katrina, awesome. Has anyone asked someone to write an endorsement? Katrina has. Katrina, are you in a position to unmute, and tell us how you go about asking somebody, because it's hard.
Yes, I did ask them, and they were a friend of mine, and they actually said no because I hadn't worked with them before. I know.
Oh, that's confronting. Okay.
I know. I was like, anyway. Yeah, but that's all right.
So you asked and they said no, and that was that.
Yeah, I guess they I don't know. This was quite a while ago now, but yeah, I don't actually know why, but that's okay. There are plenty of other great endorsements that I have got and will continue to get. So
Nice one. Thank you for being so open. It is confronting. I've never had anyone, actually, I've had a couple of people who just go, yeah, I'll do that. And then they just never get around to it. Or I'm going to assume that that's why they didn't write one. So it can be really confronting. Assume that it is possible that they don't know what to say. One way of helping somebody, if you've presented at a conference and you've had feedback, maybe in an email that said, I thought this was brilliant. One thing that you could do is say, I would really appreciate it if you were willing to put that as an endorsement on my LinkedIn profile. And again, explain how it makes them look good as well. But if they've already written you something, but that was a private message through email or SMS, if you encourage them to say, I would love to credit you with that comment because you phrased it so beautifully, would you be willing to write that as an endorsement? That might be another way of saying it. Another thing that you can do is say, if you've learned something today, could you write a post on your LinkedIn profile referencing this workshop, for example, or your presentation? And then in your post, could you write one or two things that resonated with you? And that's another way to seek their contribution, their endorsement of what you've delivered in a really safe way. Does this give you any ideas? So, write endorsements. Sometimes it's easier to write them than to ask for them. So write a few, and you might even find that they just endorse you straight back, which would be wonderful because you didn't have to ask them for it. Ask for ideas, be specific, and then be seen, which is why I'm suggesting on LinkedIn, in your social media presence, in your digital presence, you can be known as a really serious researcher. You're not on there for likes or influences. What you're on there for is to demonstrate your engagement within your field of interest and to be seen among the colleagues that discuss these things on a daily basis, domestically and internationally. Now, where I say be smart at the end of this, I'm assuming that everybody knows the acronym. Specific, be measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So, for example, one thing I am terrible at is in running these careers workshops is sometimes I don't ask you to fill out the evaluation form until a long time after the workshop. And if you've engaged with the workshop, you might have forgotten what was the best part about it. So the sooner we do these things, the better. So let's talk about how we would engage with industry. So for a lot of you who are intending to work in academia, it's often presented as an either or option, right? You're in academia or you're in industry. And if I'm in academia, I don't need to know anything about industry. And these days, it's actually not right. There are reports. So the OECD report on industry, university industry collaboration actually says that Australia is underperforming. So it's at the bottom of first world nations engaging with industry. We're not in the top quartile of nations that collaborate well with industry. That's a shame. Imagine if you could be one of the contributors that changes that around. So that's both for teaching and learning, because industry relevant programs and courses, especially when you're at the university for the real world, is really important. So even as a potential academic, your opportunity to build connections with industry turns into your job collateral. The reason that we'd hire you versus anyone else with a PhD in your broad field. Why do we want you? Because you are connected with industry. So you'll have industry relevant lectures and you'll have the potential to bring in industry sponsorship. So how to engage in LinkedIn. Those of you who've met me at all will know I'm a bit of a LinkedIn tragic. This platform is really important to me. It is not the only professional platform where you can build your digital profile, but it is certainly one of the more professional and it's one of the more broadly used. So yes, you can build a researcher profile through ORCID or one of those, but essentially on LinkedIn, you've got the opportunity to engage. And why is this important? Because 90%, that's a lot, 90% of recruiters look at your LinkedIn profile as they're shortlisting or as they're reading through your resume. 760 million users are on LinkedIn and the recruitment algorithms are amazing. So you've got industry that you can easily connect with, follow and engage. If you had an interview with an organization and you were able to say, you know, when they ask you, what do you know about our company? Rather than just repeating back their homepage of their website, which is obviously really important to know as well, but rather than just repeating that, to be able to say, well, I saw something that you posted on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and this was the critical issue that you were working with. You'll look informed, you'll look current, you'll look relevant, and pretty impressive, really. So this is why you should engage with LinkedIn. Now, how? First of all, build your profile and fill it out by sharing posts, by commenting on posts, by being available to be seen. You can connect with others and you can also do your alumni search and connect with people there. What I would suggest is that you don't just hit connect, although I usually do most of my connections on the phone. So I do just hit connect because you can't send an email on your phone. So what I'm trying to do is get into the habit of connecting with people on a laptop where I can write a comment saying, thank you for coming to my workshop today. I'd love to be connected with you. Give them a reason. Why am I connecting with you? It's because of this. You were at a workshop that I ran. You were at a conference that I went to. I saw you on the list of presenters of a conference I couldn't get to. And then make sure that your profile is ready and you want to be found. Okay, so LinkedIn as a social media platform. is not the best one, but as a professional platform, it is amazing. It gives you the opportunity to start crafting your professional profile, and it gives you the opportunity to create who you want to be and who you want to be known for before you are working in your field. So it's not tied to your job. If you look at my byline, it doesn't have my job title on it. It has what I want to be known for or searched for. So it means that you can go beyond your research topic. It collates evidence of your skills, and it gives you a repository to go, oh, where did I keep that certification? You know, where did I keep that award? You can upload them all to LinkedIn, and it keeps them in a really organized portfolio way. And it helps you identify people who are interested in working with you on projects. Now, it's also an employment platform. It can help get you hired, and it does help build your network for job search. But what I would suggest is think of LinkedIn not as a job search option. It can mean that you can get jobs sent to you the same way Seek does, but LinkedIn does not equal Seek. LinkedIn is there for you to engage with your network and build a history of engagement before you're job searching, so that when you're job searching, there's history they can look at. How do you engage with people? How do you engage with your topic of interest? There's a history that they can look at, so they know that this is a genuine interest that you have done before you are job searching. And you can allocate just a few minutes a day for this. So if you're wondering, that's what my profile looks like. And if you're wondering, yes, it weirds me out by putting my photo on there. I don't like it. It's my face. I'm not thrilled with photographs of my face. But what it does do is let people know this is the right person that they meant to collaborate with. So as you can see, under my byline, we want to then show what people want to search me for. On my byline, and this is the reason that I'm showing you, where it says open to, I would invite you to allow yourself to be open to recruiters only. You know, the big green banner that says open to work. And for some people who've been made redundant or they're unemployed and they really do need a job pretty quickly, this open to work banner can be really, really helpful. But I'm not unemployed. In fact, I'm overemployed. I have too many jobs right now. So I don't want to show the world that I'm unemployed and I'm looking for work. But I always remain open to work for recruiters only. And you can enter 5 search terms. Now, my terms will be very different to yours, but you get the idea. I've said career coach, corporate trainer. This would be an employment consultant, those kinds of things. So what are 5 types of jobs within my field of expertise that I would be interested for recruiters to find me on? What that does is, yes, it opens me up to a whole lot of spam from people who want, particularly with the word coach, because I've got coach in there. There's a lot of people that want to sell products or their services to coaches. So what I do for those is I will say, I'm not in the market to purchase anything. If you would still like to connect with me, I am really happy to connect with you. If the next thing they do is try to sell me something anyway, I just disconnect from them. So it does require a little bit of maintenance, but I would rather be connected with too many people than not enough and miss opportunities. What this can mean is you might not be actively job searching, but you may find of a research opportunity that is just so perfect for you. it would be ideal for you to at least do an informational interview for, even if you're not ready for recruitment just yet. It's a really helpful one. Jonathan's asked a question in the chat. I've been warned of risks with stolen identity from uploading stuff to LinkedIn. So yeah, when you say upload awards and information about you, how do you recommend promotion without putting yourself at risk? Jonathan, that's a really valid question. Some people are quite concerned or have had experience of identity theft. So if you're uploading degree certificates where you've got lots of identifiable information, you may choose not to do that. For myself, I've come to accept that, well, for one thing, now my name's not Jonathan Watkins. I don't know how many Jonathan Watkins there are on LinkedIn, but I'm guessing you're probably not the only one. So when you have a name that other people can take on, this is one thing. I happen to know I am literally the only Karen Barbu on the record. So for me, that alleviates that concern a little, but you're right about identity theft, where you've got somebody the other side of the world who is just pretending to be me, building a list of information, passwords, identity, so that they can take my bank accounts, those kinds of things. It is something for you to be aware of. What I would suggest is that there's a number of LinkedIn learning workshops that say, you know, these are ways to protect yourself online. LinkedIn is really aware of it. So what I would suggest is one of the important things about your LinkedIn profile that most people haven't filled in is your about section. This is basically the big summary, and it's like, what are the most important things about you? And what I would suggest is that you answer 3 questions, 1 sentence each. Who you are, what you can do, and then what do you want to be searched for or found for? So who you are, for one thing, I would love for you not to have PhD student in your byline. Where am I? Here we go. PhD student in your byline. Even if you are a PhD student, you are so much more than your PhD. If you notice with mine, I've come up with words that I will always want to be searched for, regardless of where I'm working. So this is my profile, my identity that transcends what I'm studying and where I'm working. So who are you? You are more than just your thesis. You are more than just your PhD or your MPhil. Who are you? I am a qualitative researcher with expertise in XYZ. Then what you can do, your skills, your aptitudes, your claim to fame, and what's your relevance. And then what do you want to be searched for? Who do you want to attract? I am looking to make connections with like-minded researchers. I am looking to add to my repertoire of relevant industries. I am looking for a sessional academic role. It could be anything. So, how are we going? Is everybody still with me? I've talked about types of social capital before. So something that's really important to know is we all come with inbuilt social capital, and some of us have more social capital than others. Some of us are better connected by reasons of birth or schooling or suburb or industry. Some of us find it easier, or we find that we're already more connected than others. So we've got 3 types of social capital. There's bridging capital, where one person is introduced to someone else through an intermediary. Now, your supervisor is often your bridging connector. So they're the ones that introduce you to someone else. Bonding is when connections are formed between similar groups of people sharing the same category characteristics, that's hard to say this afternoon, that can occur organically, or it could be you're a member of an HDR society, and so that's your commonality. You're a member of a professional organisation, and that's your commonality. Or you're researching in a similar field, and that's your commonality. These can be useful on your digital profile, but the one, ironically enough, that's called linking is where connections are linked from outside your own community or outside your own socioeconomic groups. And these are the connections that can sometimes occur vertically or even cross-naturedly. I don't know the term for that, but they're connections, in other words, that you couldn't find by yourself. So bridging connections occur horizontally. You can, as long as you've got somebody to connect you to the next person, you can find those. The bonding one occurs organically just in your communities and and where you congregate. But the ones that you can be connected with people across the world, transdisciplinary connections, these are the ones that you could never find yourself without a platform that helps you to do it. And this is the way it plays out on LinkedIn. The reason it's referred to as LinkedIn is because it leverages the third type of social capital that creates links that just wouldn't happen organically. So they're links that you can find for yourself without knowing anybody in there. Now, I've got some resources that I'd love to share with you. Kathy, if you wouldn't mind putting them in the chat as well. If you have not downloaded The Cheeky Scientists, A Complete Guide to LinkedIn for PhDs, I really encourage you to do so. Isaiah Henkel is the coordinator of the Cheeky Scientist platform. And whether you are in STEM or outside of STEM, he's a really helpful human. So that photo here, the complete guide, it's pages and pages and pages of enormously useful resource that is specific to people in HDR research. So it's super important. What they suggest you do is, this is how to complete a LinkedIn profile. As an HDR, the headline, what is about you, what you are open to. So they're all, it's kind of nice when my advice is reflected somewhere else too. This is what I talked about earlier, your education details. Now it talks about in education details, what else do we need to know about this? So what style of researcher are you? What kinds of organizations, industries are you partnering with, or would you like to partner with? Volunteer experience. Often the assumption is that PhDs are too busy to volunteer. This might be true at the current time, but what is it that you're involved in that you do because of your family, your ordinary connections, your life connections outside of study, or what have you done in undergrad or in the space between undergrad and postgrad? What volunteer experience does is shows what kind of a human are you? Are you interested in giving back? And where do you look for opportunities to do that? The same with committees, groups, and leadership opportunities. What skills are you building and where are you practicing them? What other short courses have you done? What are your publications? This is another place to put them. Your presentations, certifications, companies. And when we talk about influencers on LinkedIn, we don't mean Instagram or any of those influencers. We don't mean social media influencers. We mean influencers in your field where you want to learn from people who are discussing issues that you care about. This is what we mean by influencers. So have a look at this document. There's 7 tips for PhDs, and there's how to rock your PhD headline. It's a handy one. Now, one of the other things that is really useful is to conduct informational interviews. I wish I could come up with a better name for them, because it doesn't really sound sexy, does it? It doesn't make you want to go, oh, that sounds amazing, I want to get in on that. But essentially, it's good practice for job interviews because you're the interviewer. So it puts the attention and the focus on someone else, and where you found someone that you want to connect with, maybe an alumni, maybe somebody who's working in a role that you would dearly love to do in a couple of years' time. You can ask them on LinkedIn. It's a really easy way of saying, hi, Jackie, I found you on LinkedIn through the alumni search. Sounds like you've got a fabulous job at the CSIRO. I'd love to hear about it. Would you have 15 to 20 minutes one day next week that I could ask you a couple of questions about what got you started? Looking forward to hearing from you, Karen. So that's kind of the script that you would use. Make it time bound, make it fairly soon, within the next week. They will come back and say, ain't got time for you, in which case you say, totally understand. Again, going back to that question, is there anyone else in your network who I should know? And it gives you an out from that awkward, nope, don't want to help you. But if you've asked them for an informational interview, you're not asking them for a job. You are asking them to talk about something they are very well qualified to talk about, which is themselves. So you're asking them, how did you get in? How did you get started? What did you think you wanted to do? How did you find out information? So really, you're just asking for their experience. Ideally then, if you talk to 3 or 4 people about what their experiences are, then you'll get an idea of what it's really like to work there. Now, because I do know a conversation that I had with Josephine not so long ago. Josephine, are you able to unmic and unmute? I keep saying that, unmute, and just give us your potted history of informational interviews.
Sure, I can do that. So we had a workshop which was, I think, about job interviews in general. I think it was 2 weeks ago, when I'm right, Karen. Which was highly interesting. So I can just recommend join that workshop if you have time and it's coming up again. Out of that, so I just sent in a couple of emails through to some companies where I would be interested to work in. They came back to me, or one of these companies came back to me after 24 hours and said, yeah, sounds interesting who you are, what you do and what you did. So do you want to come and for an interview, or better for a meeting over coffee? And then we can have a chat, or I would like to know more about you, and maybe you want to have more information about the company. And that was apparently last Wednesday. So I went to that interview, and overall it worked very well. So it was a great interview. We had like an hour, we talked about an hour, and it was very flowing. So I went out with a very good feeling. And on Friday, you don't know that yet, Karen, HR called me about, yeah, what my expectations are, and we see how we go from here. So I don't know if they overwhelmed them now, but yeah, so overall I can just recommend, just put yourself out there, send out even a couple of emails, explain what you did, what you do, and where you see yourself, and see what's coming out of that. I mean, you can't expect that everyone comes back to you, But even if just 1 or 2 do, you win. So yeah, and you don't lose anything. Yeah, that's about that.
What an amazing testimonial. She's not a plant, I promise you, although I did let her know that if she was in this workshop today, I would love for her to share her story. But that is not scripted, folks. How about that? So you've sent out a couple of emails. Was it emails?
Yeah, 3 emails, yes. So I checked a couple of companies where I'm thinking, yeah, that would work with my expertise and with my knowledge, what I gained before my PhD. Yeah, and not even 24 hours later, I got feedback, the first email back, and they asked for an interview, and then we found a date like 3 days or 4 days later, and 2 days later, or not even 48 hours later, they came back with HR. So it's just really, yeah, putting yourself out there.
So
Yeah.
from the effort of sending one email, I'm interested to work with your company. This is my background. You've saved all the hoops of send us your resume, come for some shortlist video interviews.
Yes.
The pressure of turning up for an interview with 4 other candidates who are in the conversation. You've skipped all of that. They haven't interviewed a soul. They haven't even properly interviewed you. It was a coffee, which is still an interview, but it was a much more relaxed interview. So this is how it's done, my friends. So figure out who you're interested to be, where you're interested to be, and just introduce yourselves to someone. It may not work as beautifully as it did for Josephine, but what if it does? Josephine, I know you won't mind me sharing, is not from Australia either, so doesn't have that many connections in Australia that she could rely on, as some of us born and bred here may do. So sometimes it's the people who don't feel connected, that feel that they've got to do that extra step, that get the better results because they're putting in more effort.
That's right. So in the end, I just wanted to do networking. So I really tried to get in connection with people. So in the field of my expertise. So that's really about it. So I mean, because of COVID, we didn't have really the chance to go to much conferences or to many of them. So yeah, that was just, yeah, was a try. And I mean, I don't know how it goes from here, but in the end of the day, it's just a great outcome. Like even for my feeling, like in case I go to something else or take on another role, but like the job interview situation is a completely different because of that
Isn't
feedback.
it wonderful to have a free shot at something? And still, if there's a better offer, you're still welcome to take it.
Yes.
If it's too early and you're not ready to look for full-time ongoing work yet, that's still something that you're able to say. But how wonderful that a little bit of effort gave you so much return.
Yeah, and I mean, they even asked, then, do you want to go part-time? When could you start? Or do you want to get away straight away full-time? What is your expectation? So where do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do? So yeah, that's totally up to you in the end. Yes.
How amazing. So if you can think of 3 or 4 as I'm holding up 4 or 5 fingers, I don't number. If you can think of a small number, a handful of organizations that you might like to work in, what do you know about them, so that if a job opportunity did come up later, you've got someone that you can pump for information to give you an advantage over other applicants. Or in Josephine's situation, possibly jump the queue altogether. How amazing. So this is a large flyer, but it's useful for people to think, what is an informational interview? This is your one slide piece of information. So basically it's about identifying someone else who's in a role doing something that you think is cool, for somewhere you think is cool, or just doing a role that you think is something that would suit you. Then find out as much as you can about that. Contact them on LinkedIn. I've given you the prompts there. Then it's about listening to what their story is. Now, their story might be very different to yours, and that's okay. So the more stories you hear, the more complete a picture it can be. Just because one organization suits someone else doesn't mean that it's always right for you, but you don't know if you're speaking to HR, because they're never going to tell you the real story. They're going to tell you the whitewashed story, you know, the glossy version. What you actually want to know is really, what is it like working here? And then potentially, if you have a great experience with your informational interviewing, ask them if they are interested in doing this again with you. And if on the second option, when you've had even more advice, then you could potentially say, would you be willing to be a bit of an industry mentor for me to help guide me through? So there are really important ongoing mentor relationships through this as well. All right, so I want to remind you about our Padlet. I would love to hear some of the tips that you've heard today that might be useful, but we've still got quite a lot of time. What I wanted to do was to say, that's made my day. You changed my way of thinking about LinkedIn. For a lot of you, LinkedIn is a platform that you're not necessarily familiar with, that opens up so many different opportunities. If you would like some quick tips, I can show you through my LinkedIn profile how you could do things. Please feel free, unmute yourself, turn your mics on and ask your questions. I'd be really happy to go through what is it, that you would most like to learn about this platform, because a lot of you said, I want to change. I don't have a digital footprint that is searchable, that I'm comfortable with. What is it that you want to change about that? If it's LinkedIn, let me know and I can help you.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Paula.
Hi. You mentioned before the 3 questions to follow, so you can write your about in LinkedIn.
Your about section, yes.
And I was
are
able
you?
to catch the first 2, but not the third one.
Let's go back to that slide. This one. Who are you? What you can do,
Okay.
and what do you want to be searched for?
Okay. Because I opened
Now-
my LinkedIn account
Yeah.
thanks to your tips. I think it was 1.5 months or 2 months ago.
Excellent.
It was very good, but there's so many things to fill up in
Yes,
the LinkedIn.
there is.
I was able to get a lot of contacts, and some of my the academics leading my field, I got in contact with
Yay!
them, and I
Excellent.
feel like a little groupie because all of them say yes and they're interested in my research, but I haven't filled up anything. Only I put my name, the picture, because I have a lot of experience in the past in different works, and just
Yes.
to fill up everything, it feels like impossible.
Yeah, I hear that. Is that a shared experience for others of you? That I've done so many things that filling it out until it's properly full. Okay, and Katrina's also asked when to post and what to post. If you like, let's have a look at my profile, because I don't mind embarrassing myself in front of you guys. And you can learn what to do and also what not to do through my mistakes. All right. So can you folks see my profile on LinkedIn? Is that big enough for you to see?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So what you will notice is these are my 5 things that I would like to be known as. This is my byline. So others write their PhD topic, others write their professional role. What I particularly love, I will probably always have a portfolio career. I like to dip in and out because there's lots of things that I like to do, and there's not many jobs that let me do all of them. So I like to do a few different things. I never want to be defined by one job or one program of education. This is a profile that comes with me. So regardless of what job I am doing, it will be probably in these fields. What I have done, so if you go open to on your profile, if you haven't added it, it would be under more, most likely. But if you can see, what I've done is I've said, this is what I'm open to work with. Career coach, corporate trainer, employment coordinator, things like that, where I'm open. And for the sake of these examples, I've always said immediately, I'm actively applying because I want people who are interested in me to contact me as soon as possible. What kind of roles? And this is the part. And so you can make that as specific as possible to your field. So what I would suggest for you folk is you're probably always going to have research, or researcher, but then you're going to have the field that you research. You might also have the methodology that you prefer, or it could be sessional tutor or something like that as well. So write up to 5 things. Now, where I said, and then you can specify full-time contract, part-time, internship or temporary, I would suggest that you tick all of those just to see what happens. Now, because I don't want to look like I'm stuck for a job or with the green banner, this would be to everybody or to people using LinkedIn Recruiter. That means it's behind the scenes. The only reason you know I'm open to these things is because I'm telling you that, but from my profile, you would never know. So you don't have to let your supervisor, for example, know that you're interested in other things. So it can be really helpful. Now, in terms of filling out your information, the about is really important. Write it in first person, so it's your story, not something that someone else has written for you. Now, you can see activities, so people will look for that. So activity is where you've celebrated with things. So my latest activity, all activity, all kinds of things. So I've liked things, I've celebrated things, I've shared different things. I've said, this is what I'm doing today, which is awesome. Now, if you have a look, these are all the articles I've posted. None. I haven't written any articles. I'd love to, but I haven't got around to it. So I haven't done those. These are all the documents I've uploaded. None of them either. These are all the posts that I've made. So Katrina was asking, what do I post and when do I post? So one of the interesting things to be aware of is, when are people on LinkedIn? What I find is they're often on LinkedIn during their commute to work. So that could be anything from 6 till 8 in the morning, tends to be a good time. or between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, or 4 and 6, or whatever that may be. So it's something that they do on the train or on the bus as they're getting ready for work. What I find is that you'll get the most engagement, usually Tuesday to Thursday, in those commute times. Now, that's my experience. Experiment with your cohorts, with your engagement vehicles. They might be a little bit different, but I tend to find that that's the best time to post. Now, people who are social media managers are going to tell you post 5 times a day, and they're going to tell you post, you know, at 10 in the morning or something like that. That is probably true if you want to be a LinkedIn influencer. I'm pretty happy just to be a LinkedIn active user at this point. So I don't post multiple times a day. I don't have time for that, and I know that you don't. So what I would suggest is anytime you've done something, now that might be attended a workshop, attended an event, Business Leaders Network, a Karumba Institute award, something like that, then tell people where you are and what you're doing. So 3 days ago was the last time I posted writing. I made a post and I said, I'm spending time with my coachee from QUT's internal coaching program, loving these opportunities to support others to shine. So it's 2 lines. Here's what I'm doing. This is why it's important to me. So I'm building who I am as a professional on my platform. I follow lots of people. Adam Broder is a fabulous person to follow, actually. He teaches people how to transition into high-paying technology and engineering careers. Isaiah Henkel, so the cheeky scientist, is someone else that I follow. So Jennifer Polk is someone else that I follow. Jennifer posts about PhD careers. So I will follow people, and then where they've talked about something useful. So, for example, Adam posted, I'm starting a trend called quiet managing. We've heard of quiet quitting, where you just do the minimum for each role. And he's talked about, actually, let's have quiet management where you don't get micromanaged and that you listen to people. And so I've responded to that, thanking him. So I've given him credit for his post. And then I've just added 1 line. The more quiet managers we encourage, the less quiet quitting we need to do. So essentially, and then where I've talked about, so other people in universities, then I've said, yeah, this is what I love about my job. So this is what I love about my research. This is what I'm learning about my topic. This is what I'm engaged with. So Katrina, my suggestion would be, it's hard to often go, was nominated for this award and I achieved this, thank you, all the time. Like if you're receiving quite a lot of acknowledgement, it can be difficult not to feel like you're boasting when you're doing that. But it is important to let people know. Sometimes if there's a post that someone else has made about you, what you can do is in your post, you could say, loving being part of such a supportive community at QUT where research work gets noticed. So if you are one of the researchers that are getting noticed, what you could then do is pay it forward and say, loving being part of a community that supports up and coming researchers, and then tag other people who were nominated or who were finalists or who also received acknowledgement. That's one way of staying humble, but also grateful for when you've received acknowledgement is one way forward. What I sometimes do, not always, is post about workshops that are upcoming. So there's a conference that I'll be attending by the end of this week. You'll be seeing lots of information that I post about that. So again, best tips that I've heard, these were my key takeaways. What I also try and do is post when other people are hiring, where people in my network, whether professionally or from a student-based perspective, might be interested. Essentially, what I like to post is what other people might be interested to hear from me, rather than me just sending it to them in a private message. So something else to bear in mind is I am one of the administrators of this page. Hopefully all of you are connected with this page. It's the QUT Graduate Research Network. We put it together for you. So it's about, oh look, it's about connecting early career researchers with industry and with each other. So we'll promote things that are happening in GRED that we'd love for you to know about. We also post jobs that you might be interested in. We talk about the showcase. Here is a role that they were recruiting for 3 weeks ago, who were looking for student support 30 hours a week until the end of the year. So it could be casual roles that are of interest. So anything that we would love to be advertised, we will post there. But it's also where we celebrate some of our wins. So, you know, if a student has been published for the first time, those kinds of things, we want to see it on LinkedIn. The other thing you will find from stalking, professionally stalking my profile, is the groups that I'm involved in, the events that I follow, and the hashtags that I follow. So groups can be an amazing place to learn all kinds of things. So I follow Roostervane. They're fabulous. Careers for advanced degrees. Learning Education and Training Professionals Group. Developing Employability, Postdocs and Entrepreneurs. All kinds of things, some of which have 10,000 members, the Brisbane Business Network. Others only have 100 members. So it can vary. But this is where you'll also find the QUT alumni groups. If you entered QUT, if I can spell, alumni, no, I can't. Alumni. So you'll see posts by people and by QUT. Now, this gives you an idea of some of the groups. There's business school alumni, there's young alumni, there's Faculty of Health alumni, law alumni, European alumni, people based in Europe now. There's alumni groups in Sydney, in North Asia, in maths. There's all kinds of QUT alumni groups that you might want to have a look at. So do as much searching for people, for jobs, for companies or groups or events as you can, because that will then tailor your newsfeed. So your newsfeed will be more relevant, more interesting. You'll come across more things. But in the first instance, like things, share things, just repost things, get used to putting things on LinkedIn. And then as you build confidence, then you can start to create your own content. But this is how you will become known for the things that you want to be known as. Any other questions that I can answer while I've still got you?
So in your comparison for your LinkedIn profile and your CV,
Yes.
what would you leave out of LinkedIn, what you have in your CV? I mean, just taking in consideration, you don't want to put all the information which is in your CV on LinkedIn. So where would you draw the line between that?
Well, see, it depends. Now, are you talking about an academic CV or are you talking about a professional resume? Remember, they're two different documents. So the interesting part about LinkedIn is it kind of is a hybrid of the two things. So if I was using LinkedIn as a researcher to engage with industry, I would possibly pull back on some of my academic CV content so that I look more industry focused on LinkedIn, because there are other ways to connect with academia where you don't need LinkedIn. So for me, the value of LinkedIn is to show as a researcher that I'm really interested in trends and industries and organizations who are interested in the work I could do or the way I could approach work if I was working for them. And that includes not-for-profits and things. So I would probably ease back on publications. I would probably ease back on some of the awards, because I know some of you are extraordinary people. Well, all of you are extraordinary, but those that I have encountered so far, some of you are so incredibly good that you've had from undergrad, even forget school, from undergrad to where you are now, there's potentially 30 different awards or certificates that you've been awarded. I would probably cherry pick those and then say which ones of those are showing my industry contacts what I want them to see. So not all of them are useful, but to be honest, those first 3 sections in my About section on LinkedIn, I would cut, mine are a bit long, I have to confess, but who am I? What can I do? And what am I looking for? I would literally start a professional resume with that profile. So I would copy and paste it so that there isn't as much reliance on independent resumes. So they could find your resume online. So there doesn't have to be too much difference. Just remember that for resumes or academic CVs for a particular role, you are going to tailor them specifically to that organization and that role. So it's extraordinarily tailored. For why am I telling you this? It's because you wanted this and I'm showing you that I can do this. With your LinkedIn profile, it can be a little bit broader and you can go, I'm also great at this, even though no one's ever going to employ me for it. Or I have a hobby in this, or I'm really interested in sustainability or environmental issues, even though that's got nothing to do with what my role is. These are the things that I'm passionate about. What we can do from that LinkedIn profile is get a sense of who you are, why we'd want to engage with you professionally, and that is either as a guest speaker, a panel member, or an employee, or a research colleague. What is the essence of me and how do I present that to all comers, basically? Dilpreet asks, how important are awards and scholarships for industry-focused profiles? Again, it depends on the awards. So some of them exceptionally relevant, others maybe not. So things like your school awards or your university awards for getting high grades, or your GPAs, and I've forgotten what they're even called. But those ones where it's like, no, seriously, I've forgotten the word. But them, possibly not relevant because GPA isn't as relevant for industry as it used to be. Sometimes GPA can work against you if you don't have a really fully rounded option, because if the only things you've talked about in your LinkedIn profile are your research and your education and your scholarships and your awards, and that's it, as well as your GPA, then potentially what you're opening yourself up for is, wow, they're extraordinarily clever, but not much else. So one, they might be intimidated by you. Two, they might think that you're not willing to learn anything or open to learning because you already think you're it in a bit, which in my experience is not the truth for most HDRs. But from a written point of view, if your documents online or your resumes are full of, I've achieved this, you'll sound extraordinarily academic, but not necessarily so human. So it's a balancing act. What are the things that you've been awarded for, or the scholarships that you've been involved with, that demonstrates your humanity, as well as potentially your approach as a lifelong learner? So you're obviously really good at it. I know that, they know that. I'm not afraid of that. They might be. So how do you balance lifelong learner? And I'm always interested in somebody with a different point of view with your scholarships and award. Any industry work that you can get, internships, self-sourced internships, and even informational interviews can really make a difference in that perspective, from the so academically gifted, they're of no practical use. All of you are very academically gifted, and I suggest most of you, if not all of you, are really well able to articulate how real world useful you are, but there might be employers who have a different perception. So ways to break that down is by endorsements. Thank you so much for participating on this panel. You really explained something so complex in layman's terms. It was really helpful. Those sorts of endorsements are absolute gold because they overcome what can be an industry perception of who they're going to get with a PhD grad, which is often very unlike who they're actually going to get, because they're going to get you and you're awesome. As we wrap up, this is a slide that I very rarely remember to use. I would love some feedback for this workshop. Let us know what was valuable, what your best tips were, whether it was worthwhile for your time. It's quick and anonymous, and it's designed to make this better every time we offer it. And to hold me accountable, this is where these workshops are going to be, underneath career development in the GRED Blackboard site until next year, when it's going to move to Canva. But that's where it's going to be. And then, oh, some of those are useful. 18th of October, we've got a workshop on HDR internships, if you're interested in building your industry connections. I've had a ball presenting to you, as I always do. If you have any last questions or concerns, please hang around. I'd like to be able to help you. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to seeing you at our next one. Thanks again, particularly to Josephine, for her testimonial. It made my day.
More than welcome. See you next time. Bye.
Look forward to it. Bye now. Already done.
Now, I unfortunately couldn't record that, but Ivy did, so that's good.
Thank you, Ivy.
Yeah.
I think.
I'll leave now.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your collaborative assistance.
That was good. I did update mine as
Okay.
as it was on.
Yeah, awesome. I was
Sorry.
hoping that would be. And I think it's terrific. It's a format that they're really scared of. So it's really nice to spend a lot of time figuring out how to make it safe for them. So the more we communicate on LinkedIn, the more normal it becomes. And then the more content they can just repost. You know, this was awesome.
It was really good having Josephine's story there, wasn't it?
Isn't she amazing?
Mm.
That was just a random story that I found out from the one-to-one that I did with her. I want her to put that on video as one of the success stories.
Yeah.
Because that's what I would love to fill our LinkedIn page with. Just little grabs.
Great
I've got
idea.
to win. Here's what this is. You know, it's much more interesting than hearing it from middle-aged ladies in lanyards.
Yeah. That was it was fab. And interesting, Katrina Ruck was in there because she's just gained a bit of attention. She's just received quite a high profile Women in Science, something or other.
As
She's smashing it.
Researcher, she is finding lots of opportunities. And that's why I was kind of trying to say, these are the kinds of questions that, these are the kinds of posts you can make without making it sound like I'm big noting myself all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hard when somebody's being nominated for lots and lots of stuff, not to go, look at me, look at me some more.
Yeah. Which
And
you lose interest with, don't you, I guess? So
well, yeah, but it also gives you a persona that isn't really accurate. That's not her.
yeah. Yeah.
You know,
very
so
true.
how do you do this? Well, let's celebrate everybody. Let's nominate them, you know, let's focus on them. But where you've got the opportunity to have a platform, say something meaningful because people are listening.
Yeah.
I was hoping she'd be in early so that she could do the acknowledgement, but she arrived
yeah.
because it's always more fun if we've got
Yeah.
a properly Indigenous person
That's it.
engaging
Yeah.
with that. But again, I don't want to
Yeah. Don't
make
put
her
her on the spot.
feel like she's obliged to lead things every time she goes to learn about things. Oh, interesting.
All right. I'm going to check out. Chat to you.
Thank you for your company.
over
That
the
was
wall.
awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.